Karl Jobst is a YouTuber who is most well known for making videos exposing Billy Mitchell for his bad actions, which include cheating in the arcade video game Donkey Kong, and starting a bunch of frivolous lawsuits with various YouTubers. And of course, by making this content, Karl himself ended up getting sued by Billy as well, to the point where Karl had to ask his audience for donations to help fund his defense against Billy Mitchell. In this video from November 2022, he linked a GoFundMe for the defense that ended up raising over 200,000 Australian dollars. In the GoFundMe description he says, "Hello you absolute legends, my name is Karl Jobst, and I'm a YouTuber who often reports on video game cheaters. Last year, Billy Mitchell, star of the King of Kong and proven video game cheater, sued me for defamation claiming damages of $450,000. In the past year alone, this lawsuit has cost almost $200,000 to defend, and will cost at least another $100,000 before it's over. The situation is already crazy, but has since gotten much worse as Billy Mitchell has sent me another defamation lawsuit for another $450,000. So that would mean I would need to defend two lawsuits at the same time, both being extremely expensive. But then it gets even worse, because Billy is threatening me with even more lawsuits. These lawsuits are unhinged, and it is highly likely Billy will ultimately lose. But until we go to trial, it requires a lot of money to deal with. I would appreciate any help that you are able to provide, as this affects not only me, but my family as well. Obviously, it's bad enough to attack me when I've done nothing wrong, but to injure them as well takes things to another level. Naturally, the more money I am able to raise, the better my legal defense will be. That's just the way it works. If and when I defeat Mitchell in court, he will likely have to pay back a lot of the costs that I incurred. I will use that money to host a grand gaming tournament in his honor. I appreciate all the support, Karl." And then about 6 months later, he gave us an update that says, "Hello you absolute legends, thank you so much for the support you've given so far. Billy Mitchell ended up backing out of the second lawsuit, which means all the funds will be going towards helping with the existing lawsuit, and to deal with the inevitable future threats. I'm hoping to get the trial done within the next few months, so fingers crossed it's all wrapped up soon." Now unfortunately this didn't wrap up in the next few months, but instead a few days ago. A day before the results were announced, Karl Jobst tweets out, "The court has decided to stream my decision live on YouTube, so you can watch me win or lose in real time." Here's what was said in the live stream.
In 2017, Mr. Mitchell was accused of having cheated in achieving his Donkey Kong world records by allegedly using computer emulation software instead of original arcade hardware. Twin Galaxies investigated the accusation, and in April 2018, it announced that it had concluded that two of Mr. Mitchell's world record scores were not produced by the direct feed output of an original, unmodified Donkey Kong arcade printed circuit board, or PCB. It was not able to determine whether the third score was produced on original arcade gaming hardware or with the use of emulation software. As a consequence of its findings, it announced that it had decided to remove all of Mr. Mitchell's scores and to ban him from participating in its competitive leaderboards. The following day, Guinness World Records announced that as a consequence of Twin Galaxies' decision, it too had disqualified Mr. Mitchell as the holder of all his records, both in Donkey Kong and in Pac-Man. Mr. Mitchell commenced proceedings in the United States for defamation against Twin Galaxies and a number of others. One of those lawsuits was against a young man, Benjamin Smith, who was known online as Apollo Legend. I refer to him as Apollo Legend in my reasons. He published videos on YouTube about gaming, including a number in which he accused Mr. Mitchell of cheating, falsifying his Donkey Kong scores, and not using legitimate gaming hardware. Mr. Mitchell and Apollo Legend settled that proceeding on 22 August 2020. Their agreement relevantly provided that Apollo Legend would remove all of his YouTube videos and social media posts that referred to Mr. Mitchell. He would assign the copyright in those YouTube videos to Mr. Mitchell, and he would permanently cease producing any oral, written, or electronic documents or communications that in any way mentioned or referred to Mr. Mitchell or his family, apart from making an agreed statement in terms provided in the settlement agreement. Any breach by Apollo Legend of the last of these obligations would result in him being liable to Mr. Mitchell for 25,000 US dollars for each breach. Unless he committed such a breach, he did not have to pay Mr. Mitchell any money. Apollo legend appears to have complied with that agreement. However, on 20 December 2020, he published a video on YouTube, referred to in this proceeding as his goodbye video, in which he told viewers that he was recording his final video. He said, "This is the end of my life," and he explained why. In that video, he did not mention Mr. Mitchell, nor the claim against him or the settlement agreement. Shortly after publishing it, he committed suicide. The defendant, Karl Jobst, lives in Queensland. He regularly publishes videos on YouTube, mostly about speedrunning, but also about video and arcade gaming world records and people who cheat in those games. He has over 1 million followers on his YouTube channel. On 26 May 2021, he published a video about Mr. Mitchell and another video gamer, Todd Rogers, entitled "The Biggest Conmen in Video Game History Strike Again." He accused Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Rogers of cheating and of pursuing unmeritorious litigation against people who had accused them of cheating. He also said the following about Mr. Mitchell, quote, "He also sued YouTuber Apollo Legend for $1 million. I haven't spoken about this publicly, but this lawsuit ultimately ended with Apollo giving in and settling with Mitchell. He was forced to remove all his videos about Mitchell's cheating and paid him a large sum of money. This left him deeply in debt, which required him to find extra work. But with his ongoing health issues, this was all too much of a burden, and he ultimately took his own life. Not that Billy Mitchell would ever care, though. In fact, when Billy Mitchell thought Apollo died earlier, he expressed joy at the thought. The lawsuit against Apollo was just as frivolous as the rest, and Apollo definitely would have won in court. But again, he was extremely ill and couldn't handle the ongoing stress." End quote. That video containing that passage was online for 10 days from 26 May 2021 to 4 June 2021, and for an additional 5 days from 9 June to 13 June 2021. In between those dates, and since 13 June 2021, the video has remained online, but it contains only the first 2 sentences and the last sentence of the passage that I have just read. While the video was first online in its full version, 2 relevant events occurred. First, on 3 June 2021, Mr. Mitchell published his own YouTube video in response to Mr. Jobst's video. He denied as lies the assertion that Apollo Legend had paid him any money as part of the settlement, or that he had had any involvement with Apollo Legend that had led him to commit suicide. He asserted that Mr. Jobst had effectively accused him of murder. He ended the video by saying, quote, "I plan to respond the way that everybody anticipates for me to respond. And Karl, expect me," end quote. The second relevant event is that a mutual acquaintance of Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Jobst, known online as Keemstar, contacted Mr. Jobst at Mr. Mitchell's request and told him that it was not true that Apollo Legend had paid Mr. Mitchell any money. Mr. Jobst agreed to take down that part of the video while he investigated that issue further. While not taking it all down, he only left up the first and last sentences of the passage that I have read. He then emailed Apollo Legend's brother to ask him whether Apollo Legend had had to pay any money to Mr. Mitchell as part of the settlement. Mr. Mitchell's lawyers then served a concerns notice on Mr. Jobst, asserting that he had defamed Mr. Mitchell. In response, Mr. Jobst posted that letter on Twitter, claiming it to be very exciting and that any action would be an amazing experience. He then reinstated the original version of the video on his YouTube channel. It was not until 13 June 2021 that Apollo Legend's brother informed Mr. Jobst that Apollo Legend had not paid any money to Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Jobst then altered the video again to remove all except the first 2 and the last sentences. That version has remained on his YouTube channel since then. The video containing all of the offending passage was downloaded in the periods that it was online by over 500,000 people, including over 20,000 in Australia. Since then, over 8,000 comments have been made on the video, including at least 396 that, it may be said, accused Mr. Mitchell of causing Apollo legend to commit suicide and even called him a murderer, evil, and a scumbag. Similar comments have also been made on videos by other publishers on YouTube or other online media. The most recent that has been brought to my attention having been made in early 2024. In this action, Mr. Mitchell sues Mr. Jobst for defamation, claiming $400,000 in general damages and $50,000 in aggravated damages. Mr. Mitchell contends that the video, but particularly the passage that I have read, made 5 defamatory imputations about him. Those imputations were, first, Mr. Mitchell had required Apollo legend to pay him a large amount of money to settle Mr. Mitchell's defamation claim against him, which caused Apollo legend to go into considerable debt and to take on extra work to survive. Secondly, a major contributing factor in Apollo legend's decision to take his own life was Mr. Mitchell's requirement that Apollo legend pay him a large sum of money to settle the defamation claim. Third, Mr. Mitchell had hounded Apollo legend to death. Fourth, Mr. Mitchell was the main cause, or alternatively a cause, of Apollo legend taking his own life. And fifth, Mr. Mitchell's conduct was a contributing factor in Apollo legend taking his own life. Mr. Jobst denied that the imputations alleged by Mr. Mitchell were made in the video. I have found that the video made each of those defamatory imputations. To be clear, I was not required to decide, nor did I decide, whether Mr. Mitchell had in fact cheated in gaining any of his world record scores. Mr. Jobst did not attempt to prove that that finding by Twin Galaxies was correct. Notwithstanding these findings, I have concluded that the defamatory imputations made by Mr. Jobst that are the subject of Mr. Mitchell's claim have caused substantial additional damage to Mr. Mitchell's reputation and have caused him considerable additional distress. Therefore, Mr. Jobst is liable to pay damages to Mr. Mitchell for those defamatory imputations. I shall come shortly to the amount of those damages. Mr. Mitchell also asserted that Mr. Jobst's conduct in publishing the video and after doing so was unjustifiable and caused additional personal hurt to Mr. Mitchell and harm to his reputation, which justifies the court awarding additional damages known as aggravated damages. This conduct alleged by Mr. Mitchell included, first, making the allegations recklessly and without checking their truth. Secondly, publishing the video twice. Thirdly, holding malice and pursuing a vendetta against Mr. Mitchell. Fourthly, mocking Mr. Mitchell's complaint about the video and his legal action. Fifthly, persisting in his contention that Mr. Mitchell's action against Apollo legend had contributed to his decision to commit suicide. And sixthly, failing to apologise and to withdraw the allegations. I have found that Mr. Jobst was reckless in making the allegations. His assertions were based on a fallacy, namely that Apollo legend had paid Mr. Mitchell a large sum of money. That was simply wrong, and he had no reasonable basis for asserting it. Yet even after finding out the truth, he has continued to assert that the settlement had a negative financial impact on Apollo legend, and that he still believes that the settlement was a contributing factor to his decision to commit suicide. Mr. Jobst was also reckless and vindictive in publishing the full video twice. At the time he republished it, he had been told by Mr. Mitchell via his response video, by their mutual acquaintance Keemstar, and by Mr. Mitchell's lawyers that what he had said about the payment was not true. He told Keemstar that he would not republish that part of the video unless he received concrete evidence that it was true. But by the time he republished it, he had not heard from Apollo legend's brother, whom he had asked for information about the settlement, So he did not know any more than he had earlier, but he nevertheless decided to republish the entire video regardless. In his evidence, he said that he did this because he thought Mr. Mitchell would sue him anyway. His attitude appears to have been, well, if I'm going to be sued, I may as well go for broke and damn the consequences. It was reckless and showed an absolute disregard for the truth or for the effect of his video on Mr. Mitchell and his reputation. Finally, Mr. Jobst's conduct of this litigation, together with his additional online comments about it, were aggravating features of his conduct. He seems to see himself in defending this claim as a crusader against Mr. Mitchell. He is the last of the defendants who have been sued by Mr. Mitchell, and the only one, apart from Mr. Race, who has not backed down. Even in February 2024, as this action was progressing toward trial, he said in an online interview, quote, "Billy Mitchell needs to be destroyed in court. These people need to be punished in a big way before they stop. They need to get taught a lesson. So I am now the last chance. I am the last chance the public has to punish Billy. And also, the last person on YouTube you want to lose to is me. You know there's going to be 100 vids rubbing it in. I will never let Billy forget this, assuming I win. I've got to win first, but man, if I win, oh boy, I'm not going to be a good winner." End quote. Mr. Jobst clearly intended to be the knight who slew the Mitchell dragon. Unfortunately for him, his lance was not as strong as he believed it to be, and it has broken in the contest. I have found that all of this conduct has caused Mr. Mitchell additional personal harm and additional harm to his reputation. It was severely aggravating conduct that merits an award of aggravated damages. Again, I will come shortly to the amount of aggravated damages that I will award. Mr. Mitchell seeks $400,000 in general damages, that is, damages for non-economic loss, as it is described in the Defamation Act. In my view, that is too high, being too close to the maximum permissible amount. This is not one of the most serious cases, although it is at the higher end, especially given the most damaging imputation that Mr. Mitchell hounded Apollo legend to death and the extent of publication. Mr. Mitchell's aggravating conduct has been serious and ongoing, including in his evidence at trial and in his publications about this litigation. It merits substantial aggravated damages, and Mr. Mitchell asked for $50,000 in aggravated damages. I have concluded that there should be judgment for Mr. Mitchell in the sum of $300,000 for non-economic loss and $50,000 in aggravated damages. In addition, Mr. Jobst should pay interest on those amounts. Unless I receive submissions for some other order as to interest, it seems to me, from other cases, that the appropriate rate and period of interest will be 3% per annum from the first date of publication to today. That amounts to a total of $40,446.58.
That is just the most important stuff relevant to what I'm going to be talking about in the tweets I read. If you want to listen to the full thing, I have it linked in the description below as an unlisted video, and the full in-depth document made by the judge on this verdict will be linked below as a PDF file as well. After the results were announced, Karl Jobst makes another tweet that says, "I lost. The judge found Billy to be a credible witness and believed his entire testimony. From that point on, unfortunately, there was really nothing that could have saved me. I will now obviously consider my options. I know many of you will be upset with this, and I'm sorry for that. Thank you again for all the support I had received, and I will endeavor to work as hard as I can to repay all that you are owed." Davey Braid responded by saying, "I'm just now learning that the lawsuit was about Apollo. This is crazy." Darth Potato says, "Maybe don't imply somebody caused somebody else to kill themselves. Seems like you put yourself in this situation yourself." Craig says, "The judge made a point to draw attention to your arrogance throughout the trial, and you are now phrasing things as if the judge believed the lies told by Mitchell, and that he was out to get you. You defamed the guy and made a false claim, and you lost. It's that simple." Woke Aesthetics quotes Karl saying, The judge found Billy to be a credible witness, and then says, about what, Karl? Care to elaborate? Moosilk says, actually never been more ashamed by my country. Every time these old out-of-touch judges, I feel like have such a lack of understanding about how this entire ecosystem works. They just don't view things correctly. Nerd Athletics says, you fumbled so hard. Judge made the right call. HP Greencraft says, go bankrupt, laughing my ass off. My Dry Bread says, to people who are saying you felt misled, did you follow the trial at all? He never claimed it was about Billy cheating in video games. It was always about the Apollo Legends stuff. I think the judgment was awful, and Karl shouldn't have lost, but no one misled you. TK's Mantis responds, bro, I followed every video Karl put out. Not once was Apollo mentioned. This take sucks, homie, lol. My Dry Bread then responds with a link to this Karl Jobst video and says, he literally has Billy Mitchell on screen explaining what the lawsuit is about in his own words. Every day of the trial, it was very clear what it was about. That creepy reading responds, to be fair, when you paint Billy Mitchell as a liar and a manipulator, and then have him explain why he's doing something, it kinda leads to a grain of salt being taken. I definitely feel like more could have been done on his part to explain what this was about. And then My Dry Bread responds, that's a fair point. The Lonely Goomba reacted to the lawsuit results by saying, I thought Karl Jobst was getting sued for accusing Billy Mitchell of cheating. That was absolutely the angle he went with in his videos. Now I'm finding out it's because he accused Billy of being responsible for the suicide of Apollo Legend? If that's true, I feel very misled. Pretty sure Karl Jobst did not mention that once in any of his videos about the lawsuit. I don't think many people knew that was the basis of the lawsuit, since most people got their perspective from Karl's videos. Nah, that's fucked if accurate, which it seems to be. Peanut Butter Gamer responds by saying, never watched any of his stuff on Billy Mitchell, but from what I've seen, he doesn't exactly do a great job of presenting things in a fair, unbiased manner. Doesn't surprise me much, and when you play with fire, sometimes you get burned. And I think what Peanut Butter Gamer here is referring to is Karl Jobst's coverage on The Completionist, but obviously I can't be sure, that's just what I think based on how this tweet was typed out. Daydale says, no, it was about Karl defaming him. It's just that Karl's accusations of Billy being responsible for Apollo is likely what Billy clung onto in his argument, which the judge seems to focus on. The judge even brought up the cheating, but simply said, I don't care if he cheated. The Lonely Goomba then responds, the judge said he didn't care about cheating because it wasn't the foundation of the case and wasn't relevant. I mean, look, you can watch the verdict yourself. It's quite cut and dry. Karl's main defense was, his reputation was already ruined, so my claims didn't do any damage. I found a video from years ago of Billy flat out saying, regardless of what you think of me, the case is about the Apollo Legends statements. It was just made private as of the last hour. If it's a defamation case, I think that this is grounds of defamation, which is why he won. And also, to give a bit of context, Daytail did delete their tweet after getting this response, so they probably did change their minds after this reply from Lonely Goomba. Cam Varner responds to Lonely Goomba by saying, I've never even heard about that accusation before today. It really changed the entire way I viewed the entire situation. Lonely Goomba responds, right? I think he got donations and stuff for the lawsuit under that pretense. I genuinely had no idea that was even the basis of the lawsuit. It changes the entire case. Ribs responds with a picture of the completionist and says, perhaps we may have also been too harsh on him? Lonely Goomba responds, maybe. I always got the impression that it was complete negligence on his side rather than malicious, but I can't really prove that. He still knew about the issue for some time and carried on lying, so Blake Conduit responds to Lonely Goomba's initial tweet by linking a video from Karl titled, I'm finally going to trial against Billy Mitchell, and says, you feel misled because you were misled. Even if he did mention Apollo Legend once, there's actual hours of him going over why Billy is a cheater. The real reason he was being sued was buried under misdirection, and Karl's response is truly disappointing. Lonely Goomba responds, yeah, I've since gone over most of the relevant videos. Granted, he did actually mention Apollo Legend in one video, but it's like 1% of his coverage. It was glossed over. People are saying it was always obvious about Apollo, but it just feels like gaslighting to me. Goose Duck Chase responds to Lonely Goomba by saying, Karl got a bunch of donations through blatant manipulation. He's not better than the completionist. Lonely Goomba responds, that is what I'm thinking is going to unfold. As if losing isn't bad enough, he might lose a lot of support from fans. Goose Duck Chase responds, doubt he will. If you look at most of the comments anywhere, people still think it's about Billy Mitchell's cheating. Karl, like many other YouTubers, has a following that believes in him fully. Lonely Goomba responds, no one really covered the story yet. Not to sound pretentious, but all it takes is a big YouTuber to cover it for it to change perspective on the case. Junk responds to Lonely Goomba by saying, Karl could have thought he was being sued for that, but it was actually because of the suicide comment. The judge in the case didn't really hold anything back because even with a retraction, the judge pointed out that it didn't do much to quell the hate, even if Billy isn't well liked. Lonely Goomba responds, I'm pretty sure you get told why you're getting sued. Adamus responds, he mentioned it a lot actually, and Billy himself publicly talked about it. Lonely Goomba responds, I'd like to see proof he talked about it a lot, because everyone I talked to, even people who followed the case and watched all his videos, thought it was about cheating allegations, as do many people I've seen in response to this tweet. Amadis responds, you could just watch videos on the topic. They are public on his channel, instead of talking to other people who also have not a clue. Anyone loosely following this from the start knew it was about the Apollo case. Also, Billy did sue him and many others for faking record allegations. Lonely Goomba responds, I watched all of his videos, although not religiously. Anyone loosely following this from the start knew it was the Apollo case. The response to his tweet says otherwise. On the flip side, I've genuinely not seen a single person think it was about Apollo prior to today. Veritas Games responds to Lonely Goomba by linking this tweet thread by Erstats Cats, who says, I'm seeing some of the reactions to the Karl Jobst / Billy Mitchell verdict. I'm surprised to see so many people A, didn't know what the case was about, B, feel misled despite not simply informing themselves, and C, accepting Billy's framing uncritically. To be clear, Billy sent Karl 2 threats over cheating allegations. Billy followed through on a 3rd threat over a claim that Apollo paid Billy money to settle. The exact language was tepid, and Billy exaggerated any inferences. Karl was right not to discuss case specifics. If you'd like more details on this, some guy wrote the details of his case back in September. Most importantly, just do not take Billy's framing at face value, not even when a judge goes along with it. Billy Mitchell is a lying liar who lies, and then he links the article, and it's very long, so I'm not going to read it in this video, but I will leave it in the description for you guys to check out if you'd like. Lonely Goomba responds to this by saying, I watched Karl's videos. Nah, he misled people. Watch this video, and then he links the video where Karl announced the GoFundMe. Lonely Goomba continues by saying, he just shows legal documents and whatnot, never once mentioning Apollo, and only talks about cheating allegations. Despite him knowing at this point in time, the Apollo accusation existed. You can't walk away from that video not thinking it's about cheating accusations. The letter he got in regards to Apollo was sent in 2021. It was pretty clear early on, but somehow he never mentions that letter, and instead focuses on the AVGN meme. Also, to add salt to the wound, in his tweet he says people are lying about him saying it was about cheating, and that he never said that. I think that is also misleading, not gonna lie. So he kinda dug a hole for me. Prompted Animal responds, unfortunately, I kind of agree. Even if he wasn't deliberately misleading people, he accidentally did, and took in a lot of money on a far weaker legal case. Sucks all around. Lonely Goomba responds, yeah, it's not great. The most charitable interpretation is that the legal fund was for cases that never even happened, and never had to pay for. Cases which he probably would have won. He then never clarified the legal fund was for a more serious case, and skimmed over that aspect. Now, speaking of the tweet that Lonely Goomba referenced in his reply before Prompted Animal responded, I'm going to show it to you right now. This tweet was made about 3 hours after the previous tweet where Karl said he lost the lawsuit, and it starts with him saying, there are a lot of lies being spread that I falsely claimed Billy sued me because I said he cheated. I never claimed this. I only claimed it was relevant as part of my defense. I didn't openly discuss certain details for obvious reasons, but I was never trying to hide why I was being sued. He then links his video from August 2023 titled, Billy Mitchell accuses me of fraud during insane rant, and continues the tweet by saying, in this video, I fully allow Billy to explain why he was suing me, and I specifically state that I choose not to go into too much detail because it related to the ongoing lawsuit. Furthermore, I never asked for money when Billy originally sued me. It was only after he sent me a second lawsuit, and a threat of a third lawsuit, which were completely unrelated that I needed to crowdfund. My total legal costs are well over $600,000, so any money I received went to my lawyers. I did not intentionally try to deceive anyone, or trick anyone just to defraud them or scam them out of money. But the criticism that I should have been more transparent is valid, and I'm sorry. Truthfully, I didn't want to repeat or mention any claims regarding Apollo Legend, because it may have jeopardized my defense. I never intentionally lied regarding Apollo Legend either. I relied on incorrect information from multiple sources. I retracted the statements once I confirmed it was inaccurate, but apparently it was not sufficient. At some point, of course, I will produce a video discussing everything, and I still believe the decision today was not the correct one. Damage Sector responds by saying, "The problem is the word cheating or cheater, as mentioned in pretty much every video and on your funding page. I checked the video, and it was mentioned Apollo was part of the lawsuit, but I never saw that video, and many other people either didn't as well, or failed to pick up on the point that was basically otherwise not mentioned elsewhere. Cheating was also brought up in that video. Also, people knew there were other lawsuits he threatened but didn't follow through with. How do you expect so many people to know one of them wasn't the Apollo claims? I get it's your life, and you know all these details, but it's very difficult for people not related/affected by this case to know this. Many big YouTubers who covered this kind of stuff didn't even know everything, and thought it was about cheating as well. It's understandable why so many people thought this lawsuit was about cheating, and why so many people were confused when they heard you lost. So while you didn't lie, the whole thing about not wanting to talk generally about/mention the Apollo claims is what caused people to feel misled, even if unintentionally. Andy Warski says, "I wouldn't say people are lying. You were not clear about what you were being sued for. From all the videos I watched over the years and rewatched today, it seemed like you were being sued for bringing up the cheating. About 99% of the videos are about the cheating, and the Apollo stuff was a quick aside that wasn't even explained. This isn't a case of people lying, but you were not clear about what the case was actually about." Cool Hand James says, "I never lied. I should have been more transparent. Two sentences when said together suggest dishonesty. Lol." The Wiz says, "You know you messed up when everyone's first reaction to your loss is, wait, that's why Billy was suing him? You got a lot of explaining to do." Gunnar Rise says, "So the lawsuit was all about YouTuber Apollo Legend's suicide and you defaming Mitchell over it, not Mitchell's gaming record cheating. I kind of feel a bit misled here." Nick Pro Reborn says, "A vast majority of your identity in the past few years has been this lawsuit, and only in one of those videos you decided to mention the smoking gun that would have completely changed the audience perception of you? Stuff like this is why nobody trusts a thing anymore." And this criticism of Karl wasn't just relegated to his Twitter, as the same day as the lawsuit verdict, he uploaded an unrelated video, but made a pinned comment about the lawsuit by saying, "Today, the judge sided with Billy Mitchell, and I lost my defamation lawsuit. I will explain what happened in a video shortly and explain everything. Hopefully this will not affect this channel." And then he plugs his War Thunder sponsorship. Most of the comments that followed under this video were not about the video topic itself, but rather the lawsuit, with Greffin saying, "Rough timing." Mr. Malkraz says, "Lesson of the day. Don't mislead people about what the lawsuit people are donating to you for is about, if you don't want your reputation to be destroyed." Gabby Principal says, "You might be going bankrupt, but hey, at least you defended the integrity of Donkey Kong scores." My Body is Reggie1 says, "Why didn't you tell us the lawsuit was actually about the Apollo allegations, and not about the cheating? Billy is a gigantic piece of garbage, but you also turned out to be extremely disingenuous. You deserved this loss." Dr. Draker Amore says, "Bro, you might want to address the elephant in the room." Hood LM86 says, "You won't be able to shut Billy up now. He will forever be gloating about the win, unfortunately." Blicky Film says, "You got sued by a has-been and got destroyed, my guy." NeoGames2 says, "Insane YouTuber gets sued by Billy Mitchell and destroys his own case." The Internet Explorer 618 says, "People still think the case was about cheating at video games. Good luck with the storm that is coming. Might be ironic given what happened to Gerard," with Gerard being the completionist who we mentioned earlier. Chick Canyon says, "Said in the last Mitchell video, but the results of the case were literally the one that could have been reached. Billy is a douche and a liar, but that has nothing to do with defamation, and Karl absolutely and now objectively defamed him. And I can say that as a matter of public record. Karl Jobst defamed professional douchebag Billy Mitchell. That's how justice works. It applies to the people you hate, even when the people you like wronged them." Mau4903 says, "Sorry, my guy. Can't keep supporting after you purposely misled us into thinking the lawsuit was about cheating when it is clearly not. Take the L, pay up, and never mention this again." Because of all of this backlash on his video, Karl Jobst removed it and then tweeted out, "I removed my last video. Obviously people are upset, so it is better I address the concerns of the public first. and make a video explaining everything before releasing future videos. I would just ask for you to wait for my video before making a full judgment. I'm sorry for releasing the video today. It was due to sponsor obligation, but that's far less important than addressing concerns. After the verdict was reached, Billy Mitchell tweeted out, "Billy Mitchell always has a plan. Thank you to everyone who supported me. I am grateful." And then he retweets a quote retweet he got from Triforce Game Master, who says, "In this day and age, the passion for wanting to be right about something blinds people to believe what they think is true from what is true. The duty to expose the truth becomes a warped crusade, and all that bought into it don't realize the truth until the end." 2-1 Billy Mitchell. And that seems to be the case, as Billy is getting a lot of support, like from Norm Cruz, who says, "You dropped this," showing Mario with a crown in his hand. And there's many more tweets about Billy and Karl, but this video is already running long, so I will cover that in part 2. And if you don't want to miss that, be sure to subscribe to this channel with notifications on, and consider supporting the channel by either checking out the Patreon or giving a super thanks in the comments. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.